Hello and good morning. Thank you all for joining the call. Make sure that you keep yourselves muted.
Hey, what's that? Does that look like your meeting? No, you look like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess so.
Hello everybody, thank you for being on the call. You can let everyone get settled in. Make sure that you go ahead and mute your own line.
Welcome to WebEx.
You might want to go ahead and turn your video feed off.
Followed by pound. Enter your attendee ID number, followed by pound. If you do not know your attendee number, press pound to continue.
If you're joining us only by phone today, make sure you use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Again, welcome to CCOC 2021 budget training. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes to get on the line.
Sent it, right?
And then we have several registrations, so lots more callers to join us. Sure that you mute your own line. If you're a call-in only user, use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you have a question, use the raise hand feature in the app. And after today's training is completed, we will make sure that this recording is posted onto our website. You'll be able to go there to refer back to it. Again, we have a few more minutes, so it's going to give everyone time to join the call. Okay, I have the time at 10 a.m., but we're going to give it just another minute or two more since we still have many users joining us. Make sure that you mute your line, and you can go ahead and turn off your video feed. All right, well, we're going to get started so I can honor your time commitment to us today. This is, again, for the county fiscal year 2020-2021 budget process. I'm starting us out by sharing my web screen with you from our website. You can see when you go to our homepage and click on budget process, this is the page that comes up. You'll see we've uploaded the base budget spreadsheet that was approved by the budget committee. That is an Excel spreadsheet, so when you click on it, you'll have to download it before you can open it and print it. Then next we have the budget instructions, which we'll be going over those today for the budget submission and the revenue projections. And then the next, the actual form. And we already have an adjustment to the revenue projection form. So if you downloaded it prior to today's training, you might need to go back and just double. We already have a revised version out there, and we will get to that momentarily. And then again, the budget training that we're hosting right now, this video recording will be available on our website after the training is concluded today. Other video information.
Do you have a mouse?
We will have to hear as it becomes available and as we go through this process.
I have a wire.
Today, make sure you mute yourself. That helps me from having to scroll through 114 participants and the noisemaker. If you are on the cell phone or office phone only and not using the app, you can use *6 to mute and unmute your line. If you have questions today, we ask you to use the raise hand feature, and I'll try and take pauses to give myself a chance to scroll through the users and identify if anyone has questions. We absolutely, definitely would like for you to ask all questions. Having so many users on the line, we're going to get through this process. If we can all get our questions asked up front, I will do my best to answer those questions. I need Jason Welty to chime in at some point. And we have, I see Clerk Peacock is on the line, so if there's other questions that rise above my pay grade, we can always have Clerk Peacock chime in. Also, you'll notice on here we have some additional tools. This 18-19 data toolbox, we used 17-18 last year. We had a couple errors in some of the data, so I have to finish going through that, but in the next day or two, you'll see that data toolbox posted there, but you can go ahead and see the contents of it, which is the same as the 17-18 toolbox. And then also, I kept the revenue projection tool that was developed by Citrus County out there. And Susan Sullivan in Citrus County is a great resource if you need that tool. Okay, so are there any opening questions before I start getting into forms? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. I'm going to switch over to our forms. We're going to start with the revenue projection form. This is the same one that we've used for several cycles now. At one time, we had a revenue projection form that had more lines of revenue, a little more detail. We're no longer using that level of detail, so we're just going back to what we've previously used. So you'll notice that the first area is for the fines, fees, service charges, court costs, etc. Using the redirected 10%. This is still to line up with the way that REC projects our revenues. And since that's how we determine our funding level, that's the way that we need for you to project your revenues. I know there may have been some times where maybe your systems weren't quite as sufficient enough, but we need for you to try to make every effort to project in this manner so that we can tie our numbers to those needed projections. If for some reason you're not able to, we ask that you provide detailed notes in the additional notes section. If you also want to provide information on how you came to your revenue projections, that's also helpful information to us. You can provide that in the additional notes section as well. If for some reason there is a area or several months where your projection is 0, if you'll also provide explanation as to why, that's very helpful. The more information that we can get up front about your projections, the less we're going to have to go back and forth with you, the faster we'll be able to put our numbers together at a statewide level. And then it just also gives us that additional information so that we can understand the nuances of each of your offices. At the top of all of our CCOC forms, we have our contact section, so make sure you use the drop-down to select your county name, then enter the contact person that we can contact if we have questions about your revenue projection and their email address. The projection as of date, this form is set to have revenue projections as of 6/1/2020 through 9/30/2021. So your date must fall within that range for it to be valid. And then your first submission to us will obviously be your version 1. If for some reason you have edits or changes as we go through the process, you would change your version number. Now, when we do revenue projections, we do them at this initial time of budget development, and then typically we also again, when we do the operational budget. At that time, that would be a new version 1. So don't get confused in thinking that you have to keep track of all your version numbers for the whole fiscal year. So during this time frame, if you submit that would be your version 1. If you have a correction, that would be your version 2. But if we come up to it at another time, then that's a new series. I see I got several questions about not seeing the form. You can access the forms yourself. So if you go up to the top of the screen, it says sharing, and there's a little caret drop down, and you can click that button and pick the revenue projection form. So you'll need to select that yourself. So hopefully you all have that. Then I can make this helpful for you too. Let me share to you my other screen. Nope. There. Then we also have this bottom section of the revenue projection form that is your 2008-111 projection. You'll see it's 4 lines: driving under the influence, issuance of a summons, traffic administration fees, and then all other line 47 revenues. And again, if there's any reason why you do not have a revenue projection or your revenue projection excludes months, please provide explanation in the additional notes section. And then also I wanted to point out that each of our forms, I designed them in such a way that you can print them on a single page, but that feature depends on really your system, so you'll have to go in and adjust that each time that you want to print your form out. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that screen. Are there specific questions on the revenue projection form? I'm going to try and scroll through everyone. I do not see any hands raised. Okay. And we are now going to move on to the bulk of today's training, which is on the budget issue form. I'm going to go back and share my screen. Okay. my sample one. I'm going to open up blank one. Okay, and before we get into that, if you notice in the instructions, we have the budget overview, the authority. When we get to in the submissions of your form, please make sure that you have your county name first and your file name. That helps us a lot when we're going through and processing all of these forms. We had a macro that runs against our email, and it pulls all of the attachments out of all of the emails and drops them into a file folder. So if you don't have your county name already in your file name, we have to go through and open them up. If you're sending attachments or if you're sending supporting documentation and you don't have your county name on that documentation itself or in the file name, then we have to go back through all the emails independently. It can be a time-consuming process for our staff. So just to give you that little reminder to make sure that you are using your county name in your supporting documents and in your file name. That would be very, very helpful. Also, our submission email address, our reports at fl.ccoc.org or flccoc.org, pardon me. It is not manned for correspondence. So if you are asking us questions, it might be a while before you get an answer. So we ask that you contact a budget manager directly, myself, Jason Welty, Leonard Harper, Johnny Petit. Any one of us can get you an information or get you an answer much faster. So if you just contact us directly with your questions and then just keep the reports email for submission, that will also help us streamline that process. The budget due date for these forms is going to be close of business on July 1. So if you have additional questions that might come up after this training, be sure to contact us and let us help you so that you can meet those deadlines. The way that the form is set up is there's 5 tabs. You can submit 5 issues in one form. You can see how the template name has the county name, county fiscal year 2021, budget issue version 1. Should you need more than 5 issues, your second one could be budget issue A or budget issue B, budget issue C version 1. So that we can keep up with if you have any revisions as we go through the process. Also included in your budget instructions is a budget process timeline. This is a draft. Obviously, we had one thought and idea in January, and then COVID happened, and that changed our plans a bit. And as we just continue to go through this budget development process, timelines and due dates are obviously subject to change. Anything that the Budget Committee or Executive Council may decide is an appropriate action to cause our timeline to change. Any legislative action could cause our timeline to change. So just keep in mind that this is just a draft timeline. This is what we're kind of projecting, what we think is going to be our activities that take us through the end of the year. Also, in the budget instructions, I want to point out on page 9, the general guidelines. This also is an area that refers to several of the appendices. I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that I provided this year with some statutory references in Appendix C. Those are not an exhaustive list of statutory references. It's just the 3 main sections, 28.35, 36, and 37. But I also wanted to point out on page 9, number 2, section 28.353A, the list of court-related functions that clerks may fund from filing fees, service charges, costs, and fines is limited to those functions expressly authorized by law or court rule. Those functions include the following: case maintenance, records management, court preparation and attendance, processing the assignment, reopening, and reassignment of cases, processing of appeals, collection and distribution of fines, fees, service charges, and court costs, processing of bond forfeiture payments, data collection and reporting, determinations of indigent status, and paying reasonable administrative support costs to enable the clerk of the court to carry out these court-related functions. So those are the type of items that we will be looking for and that the Budget Committee will be evaluating when they're reviewing these submissions. Also, Appendix B, we have the services, activities, and tasks from the Clerk's Court Services Framework. That particular appendix just has the summary level. The detailed version is available on our website as a Excel spreadsheet that you can download. And in the Excel spreadsheet, there's a column that has statutory references. So if you need more information or more detail about those services, activities, or tasks, you'll want to go there. Also, I included a summary report that CCOC staff did of the DFS audits, and that can be found in Appendix D. There were several findings that were kind of consistent across the board, and we're going to address some of those later on. So if you have an audit done in the past year, and that's one of the issues that you might want to bring forward in your budget issue request, we'll get to that. There's a drop down for that. There's also other examples if maybe you have not already had your DFS audit, if you want to go and review some of the ones that have been done recently so you can see the types of things that DFS is looking for when they go through the audits. And those are also really, really helpful if, as you go through this budget development process. Okay, I'm going to take a little break right here and double check if there's anybody that has their hand raised or if anybody has any questions so far. Okay, see any hands raised? Let me go check my messages. I think several got a message that there might be an issue accessing our website. We have some problems with that. I know a while back we sent out a statewide email letting you know how to fix that solution. So I'll have to go back and help that individual. Okay. So we're going to review the guidelines for data entry. The way that our form is set up, there's several background programming that's in there. It's not a ton like our other more detailed form, but still we're going to recommend that you hand key information as much as possible to reduce any kind of issues or overrides. We ask that you do not link to another Excel spreadsheet or another file because those links will be broken once you email your submission. And then we also ask that you don't use formulas so that when we pull this data in, we have the actual data. Formulas sometimes come in as an error message and then we have to go manually key it. So if you can do that on your end, that would be very, very helpful. And then you'll notice again in our form, you choose your county from your drop-down bar, enter contact information and the email address. Now, because there are several issues, 5 tabs in the one spreadsheet, and again, you can have more than that if you wanted to. We ask that you enter your priority number. You're going to manually key that number in. It needs to be a whole number. You'll have to keep track on your end. Your own priority ranking. When I get all the forms back and start putting everything together, we will place them in that priority ranking order for the Budget Committee to review. So if you can make sure that you've got all your numbers, that you're not misnumbering, or say you only have a priority 1 and 3 and you use 2, that will help out on the back end. But we didn't tie it to a hard number in case you have more issues than the 5 listed. You would enter whether the issue is a recurring issue or a non-recurring issue. And then issue type, for the most part, all these issues are going to be funding issues. We do have reduction issue, should that be needed at a later date. And then the issue category, and these can be found in the instructions on page 12, number 5, issue category, AO Supreme Court order, audit findings, compliance, continuation budget, cost shift from county, efficiency, IT funding from CCOC, legislative mandate, pay and benefit increases, performance measures, rule change, or other. And if you select other, this box pops up, and then you can type in what your item is. Now, this area with the issue categories, we ask that you try to pick one of these to meet your budget issue that you're submitting, so that we can try and keep a grouping together for the budget committee to use in their review. But we wanted to make sure that we had an option should none of these really truly match the issue that you're presenting. And this is probably the area that we could probably talk for hours and hours on, you know, what qualifies as efficiency, what qualifies as a cost shift, what qualifies as a legislative mandate. So I didn't provide gross detail on the budget instructions because we wanted to make sure that we kept these at a high enough level that you and your offices and your staff can really go through these and figure out what best matches the budget issue that you're trying to present. Then we have the form set up using the services across the top from the Clerks Court framework. And I know that obviously your offices don't budget in this manner, but we were asking for it in this way because these really tell the story of the clerk. These services tell us what your functions are, what your job is, what you are doing in the communities and in your offices. Case processing, revenue collection and distribution, financial processing, requests for records and reports, provide ministerial pro se assistance, technology services for external users, mandated services, jury management, administration. These are the functions that you're doing in your office. So we ask that you present your budget request using these categories. You'll see you have a line for your FTE amount, you have your line for personnel, for operating, and for capital. You may have something that you are trying to fund that would go across all categories. Maybe it only goes across some categories. We're leaving that flexibility up to your offices to decide how those impact those services. And then you have your massive issue detail request box. I try to keep it very big so that you had plenty of lines of data to work with so you can provide your explanation. We want to make sure that you, again, provide as much information as you possibly can. The more, the better. Any supporting documentations that you might have. It's very similar to the process that we did with the funding request forms. So I want to show you some examples that I worked up for Sunshine County. Like this one, I said it's going to be my priority 1. Yes, it's recurring. It's a funding issue. It's going to relate to my performance measures. It's a half FTE for requests for records and reports. Here's the funding for it. And Sunshine County requests a half FTE to process CCOC reports timely and to complete statutory required reports. The cost of this additional 0.5 FTE is 15,000 personnel and 250 operating for a total of 15,250. And then provide an explanation. Sunshine County has missed several CCC deadlines due to insufficient staffing. This position would allow Sunshine County to have the personnel to complete statutorily required reports and respond to CCC inquiries more timely. Not funding this half FTE would result in Sunshine County to continue to miss reporting deadlines. So that's just a really brief example of the type of information we're looking for. It's very helpful for us in telling the clerk story if we know not only how this funding is going to impact your offices and how it's going to assist you in doing your jobs and doing your functions, but also the impact should it not be funded. What's not going to happen if you don't receive the funding for these issue items. So I also came up with another example that shows allocating across the board. This one was for a one-time bonus opportunity based on, an attrition rate of 25% and trying to maintain quality staff. Really, when it comes to these budget issue items, whatever is the biggest need for your office and whatever are the things that you're trying to accomplish, that's what we want to see in the detail. Okay, I'm going to pause and check and see if there are any hands raised. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Are there any questions? Okay, well, I've pretty much exhausted that form as far as the actual completion of it. I know I see several in the chat discussing that, we don't capture our costs that way, and we recognize that that this is a different process than we've done in the past. We've done it, by court division. So we're trying to get the information in a new way. Let me see, I got a question here that says, are these totals for each issue the incremental amounts from our current budget, or is it our total budget request? So that was adopted, the base budget, that is the starting point. And then each of these issues would be an individual line that would be added to that. So your base budget amount in that base budget spreadsheet, plus each of these items will total the total request. And then I have another question, when will the new rates be available for the clerk? I don't have that information yet, but I will definitely get that one. Again, what date to put on the revenue projection form? Today's date 6/9 or later. The date format, I believe it's just 6/9/20, and then it will format for you. Okay, do we submit a separate form for each issue? And is this the plus and minus issues? So yes, this form can be used for both funding issues or reduction issues. You can use, like I said, 5 issues for one spreadsheet, since there's 5 tabs. And then if you have more than that, you can use another one. And it's completely up to your offices how small, how little you want to make each of these items. I was starting to work on a reduction example, but let me go to this next tab. So say you have a funding issue and it is a continuation budget. Then you would take the amount that's in the spreadsheet for your base budget amount, the amount that's the difference between that number and your current budget authority, place that all across the categories, provide your explanation, and then that could be considered your continuation budget. Then, provided you have something else you want to do, a new project, a new assignment, a new area of need that you want to meet, then you can do each of those as individual items, or you can do them, grouped together in a certain manner. And I do not believe the base budget included the increase for any clerks that would be receiving an increase this year, so that would be a separate item. Okay, someone asked about the other budget form that we've done. So that massive detailed form will come back, but only during the operational budget. So once we get to the end and we have a finalized and approved number, then that form will come back out and all that detail will be provided. We still have to work through a couple areas since we're required to identify pay and benefit increases, several other areas. So the form might be slightly tweaked at the summary end, the very last tab, but it will essentially be that same big form, but only during the operational budget time. Okay, a question is about projecting revenue based on COVID. That, again, is something that you're going to need to look at with your staff, evaluate how things are responding in your offices. If you think that the typical number that you would have seen would be sufficient, if you feel like you might take a little decrease until things get rolling back to full efficiency, that's definitely something that you're just going to have to look at with the numbers that you're seeing in your office and figure out the best determination. If we want to increase budget, next question. Yes, if you want to put in an issue specifically related to your jury costs, you absolutely can do that. There's a column for your jury management. It'd be a funding issue. Your issue category, probably the other and jury. Another question is about taking personnel and assigning it to each of these categories. My recommendation is going to be that you and your staff spend some time in the Clerk Court Services framework, really understanding all the different activities and tasks that make up the services. That will really help give you an idea of what part of your offices fall under these services, instead of looking at it simply from the court division level. And then we also have Doug Isabel in our office, very knowledgeable on this subject matter, and so he is available if you need any assistance understanding the framework or trying to figure out how to figure out where your FTEs are in these areas. You can definitely call Doug. Do we have the new FRS rate? That is a great question. I believe I have the rates. I will double check that one. I'll add that to my to-do list of information to get out to everyone today or tomorrow, if I can find those FRS rates. So that again would be another good issue to put in there. Yes, you would use the same spreadsheet if you want to do a COLA. Those would be under the pay and benefit increases category. The base budget was already developed and approved by the budget committee, and this is just issues in addition to base, so anything over that amount. So that answers that question. Next question. Okay, here's one regarding the revenues. Would you suggest we use the revenue collections for the time frame October 19th and January 20? If we have a gap between revenue expenses shown, we have a need for revenue sharing funds, we list that issue on this form. So on the revenue projections for your 2021 year, yes, make your best estimate as to what you think your revenues are going to be. If you don't think that your revenues are going to come back super strong after opening your offices, or if you think the first few months until things get back up and then pick back up to where you would typically be in a year, that's fine. But as far as this form, you're going to want to make sure that you look at that base budget spreadsheet. That's your start number. And then add to it each of the different issues that you want to fund in your office. And then after, once we have all the issues, then we review the revenue estimates and make that funded depository determination. So we don't do that up front in the beginning. We get all of the requests in first, and then once we have a final and approved budget number, then we compare that to the revenue estimates to determine funded or depository. And yes, Mike Murphy just sent me the FRS rate, so I will get that to everyone shortly. Okay. Any other questions? Don't see any other hands raised. Dr. Peacock, did you want to chime in on anything?
Yeah, Marlene, thank you so much for the work you're doing, staff, to get this information out. I wanted to give a quick shout out to y'all, as well as to the committee for sort of working through a much simpler budget process this year. Obviously, we still will have the big spreadsheet, multiple tab spreadsheet for the operational budget, but we don't have to do that twice. And so I'll thank the committee members and especially the staff members in the offices that support the committee members. Thank you for that. I also had one other issue that I haven't had a chance to bring up for the staffs on the call. As you know, your clerk comprehensive annual financial report for the clerk's office is due each year to the CCOC to keep on record. And I am looking at the spreadsheet that shows whether or not we've got that completed. There are a number of clerks who have not submitted, and I will rat on myself. Our office is one of them that has yet to submit our CAFR, and that's probably because, like most of us through the COVID, we had a lot of things going on, and I know that we delayed the finish until the end of May timeframe. So I know that a lot of people are going on, but I would remind everybody, please get in your FY19 CAFR for the clerk's office into the CCOC, so we got that on record. That will be
June 30th.
June 30th. Good deal. And so let's get that in as soon as possible. It certainly will be a topic of discussion at some point during the budget committee meetings. So thank you very much. Again, Marlene, thanks for all the work that you do to try to serve everybody. Sounds like you got some follow-up stuff, which we normally do. I will again tell everybody that Marlene and the staff, Jason, the whole staff at CCOC is here to serve you, to help you. So if you have issues or questions, don't let them go unasked. Our team will do our best to help you get through this. We know it's complicated. A lot of people, have a lot of different things going on right now. With the COVID thing, the uncertainty on revenue, everybody's trying to do their little bit of part. And so always reach out to the team if you've got questions, and because generally we have answered it by somebody, and so it's good to get that information out to everybody. So Marlene, thank you so much for the training.
Okay, great. And again, if you got any questions, just give us a call at the office.